president would announce the presenter for the evening, but since tonight's speaker is our first Vice President, Mark Kedzior, I get to do it. So Mark will be telling you about a subject that I am very into. In fact, I was one of the people who was lucky enough to be invited by Mark to help set this project up, get the prep work done, and launch it to the public. And it was been a great effort, and we are hoping that we can expand it to other libraries besides the one that Mark will tell you about. So I will let him tell you all about the project that got him the very first Bob Watt Distinguished Service Award that we ever awarded. Come on up, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Good evening, everyone. If Bob Watt was still around, he would have been assembling telescopes with us, I guarantee you that. So, the Library Telescope Program is, I'm really enjoying doing what I'm doing with that program right there. It's just from reading it, I found out about it in the Sky and Telescope October 2014, and it just so happened we were doing an observing thing at Grosse Pointe. I mentioned something about they take telescopes out of libraries, and it took on a life of its own. And here we are today and everything. So I'd like to explain to you a little bit about what I've been able to find out the last 2 years. I mean, it's when I first started doing it, it was my little small world in the Grosse Pointe Library in the telescope program. But as I was doing this report, I started looking around and seeing how it's caught on throughout the country, and I was pretty amazed with how many libraries are really getting into this program. So let's begin right here. It's a telescope loaner program to promote educational outreach, to stimulate interest in astronomy through our local public libraries. I'd like to acknowledge and appreciate for all the information from the individuals I have listed here, the New Hampshire Astronomical Society, for actually establishing this program. I'll be talking a little bit about that. And also locally, Amy Cantu and Jody Harnish from the Ann Arbor District Library. They have a total of 30 library telescopes in their system. Clay Kessler, I think some of us know who that gentleman is, University Lowbrow astronomers. He actually did the modifications on all of the Ann Arbor District Library telescopes, and he gave me a lot of good information, tried and true things that he did, and it really helped me a lot. Patricia McClary from the Grosse Pointe Library, she's the coordinator, and she's the one that was doing the back and forth with the Library Commission, and she was able to secure a $3,000 grant through the library that donated, and they purchased 7 Starburst telescopes, which we're going to be talking about. And I got a lot of information from the St. Louis Astronomical Society. Now these rascals right here, they put our program back about a month because they wound up ordering 50 of them, and I had to wait for the next shipment to come over from China. So that set us back about a month or so and everything. So, but I'm going to show you some images from their website. And then also to our Warren Astronomical Society board for partnering with the Grosse Pointe Library, and Diane, Joe, and Dale for their assistance. They were part of the modification team, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And so we're good to go. Okay. When you go to the website, New Hampshire Astronomical Society, this is what you see right there. They probably have over 200 telescopes in the New Hampshire, Maine region that they've done, and they just started with doing like about 1 or 2 telescopes per library, and we're going to go through all the process of what they did. 200 libraries, just 1 or 2. A lot of times you have small libraries, so. But that's quite how much they got right there, so that's what they're doing. So I'm going to show you the whole process on this. And then, this is how the program started. There's a gentleman by the name of Mark Stowbridge from the New Hampshire Astronomical Society. And December 2008, he brainstormed with a lot of the New Hampshire Astronomy Club members. And as we all know, being astronomers and having outreach, we do have some declining numbers of young people, looking through a telescope, taking it up as a hobby and everything. And one of the things that they were saying is that, I have my notes right here. If you haven't been exposed to a star-filled night sky, you're you're far less likely to pursue amateur astronomy. So if you have a chance to look at a star-filled night sky, you get that little spark and everything you want to explore further. They brainstormed and says, let's introduce our hobby to maybe a familiar venue to a local public library. Our club, we have some lunar telescopes. How often do they go out? Okay. That's, I mean, that's a big thing with the clubs because of the location. We'd have to go out to, Stargate and everything and do it. But the local library is a familiar venue to all, so it had to be something that they were still brainstorming on. They wanted to find a small telescope that could be modified to increase its durability. Okay, then, and this is what Mark did, and then he donated it to his hometown library. And so what the premise was is that the patrons could check out the telescope just like they do a library book. And anyone with a beginning interest in astronomy would have the opportunity to use a pretty high quality telescope. The typical age range, and I found out this is kind of true, it's mostly adults between the ages of 30 and 40 years old, and they have families with kids and everything, so they're trying to introduce their kids to astronomy. And another thing was to try to establish the program was that to find a local astronomer to kind of like be the foster parent of that telescope that is donated to the library to maintain it. Check it periodically, make sure it's collimated and stuff like that. So, so that was the premise and the concept of the program. And then in 2009, New Hampshire donated 10 telescopes to other libraries, and all of a sudden it just took off from there. This is a pretty cool picture right here. That's Mark Stowbridge, and I'm sitting looking at it. I say, that kind of looks like Dale working on the telescope in there, doesn't it?
Indeed.
Huh? Does it look like Dale? Well, Dale will be watching this on YouTube, right?
He will be.
How you doing, Dale? All right. But that's Mark Stowbridge right there. But he's the one that come up with the concept with the club and everything. Okay. And then this is some of the criteria that why New Hampshire picks this as their library telescope. And let me just show you. I happen to have. I didn't bring the big bag, but this is the library telescope right here. We'll go through some of the things on that. But some of the things they talked about, it shouldn't frustrate people. A lot of times you take things out, you got to do a lot of assembly. It should take little time to set up. It shouldn't require extensive training. I do a telescope class doing the Star Blast telescope once a month at Grosse Pointe. I tell everybody I'm like a living instruction book that they don't have to take out of the case. It has good optics. It has good optics. It has a nice wide field of view, so people can find objects pretty good once you explain how to use the red dot and everything. And it's got to be fairly inexpensive. This telescope retails from Orion without the modifications is about $209, and it's already assembled, coming right out of the box. All you have to do is just align your red dot finder scope and just use the eyepieces. It should be durable, and that's a pretty robust base. And it's stable, and it's got a decent finder scope. I think a lot of us, I know I use a red dot finder, and they looked at many DOBs, reflectors in this range, but this is provides a short tube because we're looking at libraries having limited space, and it only weighs 13 pounds. So we have to think about, transporting and everything. So anyway, this is what a quote from New Hampshire. It said, it's a nice telescope with good optics, a large aperture to provide steady, clear views of objects, easy to carry and easy to adjust. It's 3 out of 4 stars as a loaner scope to non-astronomically skilled people who compromise our target audience. It's the easy to adjust part that will get people into trouble. Okay, so that's what they did right here. And this is another one. Why make modifications to the Star Blast telescope to make it more library friendly? And their statement was, most people are not malicious, but many, particularly children or those who tend to act like children, like to explore and fiddle with things. We encourage exploration. It's the fiddling we try to minimize. Okay, and that's from the New Hampshire Astronomical Society, not me. Okay. So anyway, here's some, this is a photo. I think this actually came out of Sky and Telescope, and it was pointing out some of the things with the modifications. The first modification that we did was instead of doing the 2 eyepieces, they did a modification of using a zoom eyepiece, so there's no eyepiece changing. So they were able to experiment, and they found just using a single 8 to 24 millimeter zoom eyepiece provided good eye relief, nice wide field of view at low power, and it'll fit all the Pleiades stars, the double cluster, and the Orion Nebula in one wide field at 19 power. High power yields 56 times with this one right here. And so how the modification was done is that we removed the little knob set screws in the focuser shaft, and then we put in 2 Allen socket set screws, so that way nobody could fiddle with it and take out that zoom eyepiece. So it's pretty much in there pretty good and everything. So like right here, you can see it's not going to come out because I have 2 set screws right there. And that's the eyepiece they chose, the Celestron. That runs about $60 right there. So that's an upgrade that they had to do for the cost of the telescope. And it actually does really give pretty good images. And then number 2, you see these strings hanging onto it. I don't know how many times when I go to flea markets and stuff like that, I see a telescope. It's always missing caps. Okay, so they said we can't be losing these caps in the night. So what they did is they added strings to it. So when you take the cap off, it's dangling right there. And then they put on this cap right here, there's like a little Velcro tab. I don't have this on. This is my copy of it. And they put a little, and it sticks right there. So that way you know where your caps are when you're all through with your observing session. So I think it was Dale strung all those up. I drilled the holes and he put the strings on them and everything. So it's very important that we take care of the optics, because when they're in the library, we want to do as little maintenance as possible with them. The biggest thing, this was really one of the hardest things that I trying to do to do the suggested collimation system of the mirror, was consisting of taking that whole back portion out right there, taking the mirror out, just disassembling it, taking out those screws and replacing it with another screw. It's the same thread size and everything, but they had to use Loctite to keep the screws in there. And then what they used nylon lock nuts right there, so that way nobody could uncollimate it. I was very leery on, because doing some amateur telescope making, I just didn't want to take any mirrors out and know if it was going to be the same shape when it went back in and everything. So what we did instead, this is like, it gives you an idea right here. St. Louis, they had all these teams set up with table. This is the mirror team right there. So somebody's doing the Loctite. You can see the Loctite on the table, and they go through, get everything assembled, reassemble the mirrors. And there's another group doing the same thing. So you can see this gentleman right here is doing all that stuff. So that's probably the most maybe like, what do you want to call it, tedious or critical stage, getting that mirror back into the telescope. But you don't have to do that. If you notice right here, you see these protective caps. I wish I could have found those. But what they did is they didn't even do any of that modification on the mirrors. They just covered the back portion of it so nobody could get to the collimation screws and everything to tweak around and everything. What we did for Grosse Pointe is in the back, we actually took off the collimation screws, only the collimation screws, replaced it with a nut, and we made these caps with little routed out areas, and these holes that are drilled right here actually go into the locking screws, so that we can mount this plate on it. So once it's all set up, we use a little Loctite on the screws. There just mounts on there, they're like that. It's very lightweight, doesn't affect the balance or anything. So we went with that, so we saved a lot of time in that modification process. And I've been I check out the telescopes twice a year, and nothing's gone out of collimation. So that's definitely a bonus on that. So that's what we did here with the Grosse Pointe telescopes. Orion, for some reason, great telescope, but when they get this, when we start pulling these out, when you're turning it, just you really don't hear anything. You just hear it moving on that. Some of them we were getting, you're hearing their bearing pads on there were a thin I guess they call it Teflon, but that is like a particle board, and they stapled it. If the staples didn't go all the way through the thing, the staple was sticking up, and it put a groove on the surface right here. So some of them didn't do it. They said don't touch it, but if they did, what they said is take the base apart, and we use these furniture sliders. So these are placed onto it, and actually put a total of 6 on it. The 3 replacing the original pads on the outside, and we put 3 around the center pivot bolt. So there's a total of 6 on there, reassembled it, it works great. So that's how we did that one right there. But it's a real nasty sound. You hear that staple just like cutting a groove right into it. So, but it worked out really well. Very quick modification, and it's done a real nice job. The red dot finder scope. This was something I talked to Clay about, and he said it was very frustrating for him based on that. But he said there's a system that does work, but and what it consists of is familiar, like, let me see right here. See that wire right there? That is a AA battery pack, and that is, when you get the red dot finder, that is one of those CR2032 button batteries. They were finding out they're having a lot of cases where the people were returning the telescopes and the red dot finder was on, so they were going through those batteries like hotcakes. So they went with a more durable situation where you could have AA battery case right there, and what they did is they hardwired it into the battery compartment. It was a little bit of an engineering feat, but they did it. Clay Kessler with the Ann Arbor Club, they went with they upgraded their red dot finders to a auto shut off after 5 minutes to save batteries. So it was about a $75 upgrade, so they got a little bit better red dot finder. What we did in Grosse Pointe, we were kind of used a proactive approach, and when I do my telescope class, I please ask them to turn the power off when they're not using it. And I think I've only had to replace 3 batteries in 2 years. So that's worked out pretty good and everything. So, and then some labels. New Hampshire developed some labels, and all this information on modifying the telescopes is available on their website, so it's downloadable. You can customize the labels for your particular astronomy group, and you print them and you laminate them with a self-adhesive, and you place them on the optical tube assembly and the mount. So what we have here, that's the moon map, and you can see it right there. And this is an inverse image of the moon, upside down. So when you're looking through the telescope, you know the reflector turns the image upside down, so it matches all the features that you're looking at in the telescope. And then sun warning label, and as we know, this can't be stressed enough when it comes to looking through a telescope and having the sun anywhere near it, okay? There's a couple other labels that are on it. There's the Magnification Chart, then also a donated label that goes mounted on the base. And then the final thing that kind of like complements us all up is a small accessory bag. And that's just strapped right to that. And inside the accessory bag, the bag can be removed because it's hooked with buckles. And what we have in the accessory bag, and this was something that New Hampshire developed, they have an Audubon, National Audubon pocket guide to the constellation that fits right in there, very good. A lens pen cleaning tool to get the dust off your optics, especially on the eyepiece. A red night vision light, and then an instruction book that could be printed right off of the New Hampshire website, and you can modify the pages for your own use for your particular astronomy club. And how they recommend you transport the library telescope after checkout is put it in the front seat of your car and put a seatbelt on it, and that's how they get it right there. When I was talking to Ann Arbor, I asked them what they do with their telescopes, how they transport them. They wound up buying these, anybody know what a euphonium is? Mm-hmm. It's a musical instrument, kind of like with a tuba, a big round thing. Yeah. And the cases cost $250 each. He says they work great, but he says they cost more than the telescope. But they bought them because they wanted to protect their investment that they spent on that right there. So I think they had to just do a little modification on the inside. I made some foam padded cargo cases that actually fit the telescope really nice, and also with these, got like a 2-inch, like a dense foam lid on the top. We can actually put a tripod right on the top, and I think the total thing weighs about 18 pounds when it's all said and done. But this is the way they promote the program, how to take it home. A friend of mine that lives in Grosse Pointe, he knew about the program. He had a dilemma, and it got me thinking about, in this presentation right there, he says, well, I was going to take the telescope on a vacation, but he says, I had a choice between the telescope and the grandkids. Because it was taking up too much room in his car. That was the carrying case. I said, well, all you had to do is take the telescope, okay? But that was his excuse, okay? So he took the grandkids. I said, I'm surprised at you know. Okay, and then the library, at the Grosse Pointe Library, this isn't Grosse Pointe, but a lot of libraries, this is how they promote their program. They'll do a nice window display. Does everybody see how that see that orientation of the telescope? I'm going to get to this right here. Okay, this is one of my sore points right here. I think I know why. I think I know why. Okay, so this is a real nice one. This is like in a window. You got it all lit up and everything with the little lights for the stars. Okay, here's another one. What direction is it pointing again? Okay. There you go. But also they put books around it and everything, try to encourage people to check out the telescope. Okay. And then numerous libraries that are involved in this program, they do their own flyers. This one right here is in Massachusetts, and that one right there, actually, that is a Starblast 6. That's a 6-inch, but I don't know if they use that one or not. Okay. Here's another one. This is a nice looking poster here from Central Arkansas Library System. Okay, so this is how they're promoting the program. This one shows it without the modifications with the zoom. Okay. And here's another. Now, what I liked about this one right here, I hope these people don't think that they're getting the Kalinowski refractor, because that's about the size right there. You see that right there?
Wow. Okay,
so that's what I looked at. I thought that was pretty cool, so because you need a luggage rack to strap that thing up on the top, so we don't want to do that. Okay. And here, this one is a real good one. On the library website, if you want to check out the telescope, since you're logged in, you click here to place a hold. You can actually reserve the telescope. But reading this further, they come up with the name of the Star Blaster. Okay, so this is the Star Blaster. This is actually the Star Blast is what it's called. Okay, so this is a library website. And then somewhere else they're promoting the program. It's a Starburst. What is it? I'm so confused. Okay, but anyway, it's the spirit of the program. Okay, when you get excited, sometimes you miss the little things. Okay. But, like I'm saying, you can see that there's some happy people right there knowing that they're doing a real good thing.
They got it pointed in the right direction.
But that's a positive right there. So I forgive the burst. Okay. All right. And this was on another website. This has a lot of good information just on that one little thing right there. It's a lending program, what it is. You can use a library card, okay? And so that's a real nice thing. They have something on the Grosse Pointe website, but I don't know how much detail they got. But they do have a YouTube video on there on how to use the telescope, so I know they've gotten that far on that. And then the Astronomical League, John, that's your people right there. 2016, through the Horkheimer Charitable Fund, they donated. It was actually a contest, a drawing for societies, astronomy clubs that were involved, with the Astronomical League. They awarded 10 Starblast telescopes for these 10 different regions in the Astronomical League, and so that way they can start their library telescope program right there. So that's what they did in 2016, and those are the lucky winners right there. Okay.
Toledo.
All right. Yeah, Toledo is from our neck of the woods, right? All right. The why it's pointing down, I think it could be used, double used as a library microscope program. Okay. And we could probably put like maybe a petri dish down here, and we could look at organisms. But what I'm thinking what happened is when they do it, is that they don't have this tightened up enough. Okay, it can, see how this spins? If they don't have it balanced, it's a little heavier right here with the zoom eyepiece. Is what I'm thinking. Grosse Pointe has it like this every once in a while, so I stop in there and I go like this and walk away. So.
Question.
Yes.
You,
Yes, question? Yes, sir.
After all of modification, your $295 telescope goes to what?
With the modifications on this, we're approximately looking around $325. That's with getting, you know, the little blue pads, the zoom eyepiece, I think some strings and some different screws. You know, you buy enough for that. So, plus with all the accessories that you put in there. You know, you have your lens pen, your red flashlight that they have in there, the Audubon book. I think those ran like $12.
The longer the telescope, the further you can see.
You mean like, how do you explain that, Bob?
well, if it's, you mean longer.
Sorry?
If the telescope is longer, it's going to be a longer focal length, which means you wouldn't have to, well, you could get, look, for the same eyepiece, you could get a higher power, but the other problem with that, when you get a longer telescope, it's going to be more critical as far as collimation. So this is a little bit more forgiving.
Yeah.
And also, if you're looking for stuff, this is going to be, you're looking at a wider swath of sky, so it's easier to find stuff. You get a real high power, and you'll never find what you're looking for, especially for beginners. They're just going to get frustrated. So you want to have something that looks wide area of the sky.
Especially if you're like with young kids. In fact, last night at the class, I was doing a nighttime observing at the Central Branch, like in January, February. And I remember this lady, she brought her son, 4 years old at the time, and I had my 13-inch reflector out there. Had him up on a little ladder, and he's looking at it. She was there last night. She says, my son's 5 years old. He wants to use the telescope. He says he remembers that. And that was the whole thing. So now they're going to be checking out this telescope. So they were there looking at that. Weather was bad last night, so we looked at my favorite object is the street lights at Vernier and Mac, and explaining to him that it turns the image upside down. So he saw I was looking at where it said the left turn. It says, do you see the left upside down? And he was telling me everything he was seeing in there. So he's got an idea on that. So it's good for the kids, with the families to work with it.
So for beginners, this would be better than one of those tall telescopes on those
On tripod?
on those 4-foot tripods that cost like
Yeah.
$5,000 or $6,000.
Yeah, the reason why, because as soon as you take this out, bring it home, just by popping the caps off, you're ready to observe. You're on a sturdy base like this right here. I don't know if you ever, you know, if you observe through a telescope, and one of the things, if you have an inferior tripod system, and you start moving things around, you're waiting for the image to stop vibrating. It is very frustrating, and that's why a lot of people, after they think they're getting a good deal, they never take that telescope out again, okay? But when you can actually sit down and watch something, you move across the field of view, like looking at a celestial object and everything, and it's not moving and it's steady, it really makes it easy. And some of the kids, we had a total of 10 people last night. There was 5 kids, and they were just enjoying soaking in what they were seeing, you know. So,
Do they make the tripod stands taller?
Actually, you can get them for a little bit. You can get it, not tripods, like another
you can get tripods.
spacer, but I don't recommend them.
What I did for this right here, I did get it off the website. This is a program I made for them, and I made tripods for them, and it's made out of wood, so they, you know, it expands and everything right there. But for the kids, a lot of times they got to get on something because it stands pretty high, but on a lower table or something. Well, with that wood tripod, it works really great. We use these for the solar eclipse at Grosse Pointe, where we had all the events and everything. So I got that idea from, there was somebody had it listed on, I don't know, it was Pinterest or something, and he actually had the legs are made out of 2x4s. So that was pretty robust. Yes, Bob?
Yeah, you can go to Walmart and buy those bar stools, actually, little wooden bar stools that talk about this big.
That'd be perfect, yeah.
And they're about less than $20 a piece, and they sit about, you know, bar height, and they're just perfect height. So, you know, the biggest problem with those is if you put them on a picnic table for kids, they're trying, you know, if they're sitting here and they want to look there, it's fine, but if they want to look over here, the table is poking them in the tummy. So ideally, if you have something like a bar stool.
If you want to look 360 degrees when you're observing, like we do with the tripod, then like the bar stool works great, or a tripod.
That Starblast, you can get it with a tripod, but the tripod is garbage.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
it shakes like mad.
that's it. So like I'm saying, it's definitely wanted to upgrade on a tripod if you want to use that telescope right there. Okay.
I've always wondered, Orion has sold a boatload of these things,
Yes, sir.
for that special purpose. Why don't they special make a version with the Zoom eyepiece and all the stuff pre-set up? It seemed like, because the Oakland Club I also belong
Right.
to, we have a couple of those we placed in libraries. And we said, it's a lot of, all this modifications and everything, and you're getting, like you say, if you want the Zoom eyepiece, you throw the
Right.
other ones away.
You're absolutely
which is
right.
a waste. It seems like, why don't they just make one specifically for that? They could
Right.
probably sell it as a special upgraded model in their
Right.
catalog. And
For
obviously
library
they'll-
telescope
Yeah,
programs, and
library
I think it would
telescope.
just make it so much easier.
Yeah.
You can get them into the public, because then again, when you're saying, when you have to do a modification party, we had to get this all arranged.
Oh, yeah.
I got some volunteers, I got Diane, Joe, and we went to town on it. We enjoyed ourselves, but then again, we had to get that all done before we could
Yeah.
launch the program and everything. You're absolutely right on that, Bob. Do you want me to send a letter to Ryan? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. It'll depend on what kind of Zoom eyepiece they'll probably sell their brand, because I know they have their own
Well, they
brand
have the
of
same
Zoom
thing,
eyepiece.
it's the same exact thing. Just
Exactly.
the name on it.
Right, so. Okay, so anyway, the library microscope program, well, maybe that remains to be seen right there, so. Like I say, I do a lot of indoor observing with that when I was doing at Grosse Pointe, the rats.
Yeah.
And we were, just to show them it was bad weather outside, we were just looking at the exit sign and the other side of the gymnasium where we were having the thing, but it gives the people an idea of how the optical system worked in this telescope. So we had over 70, 80 families on that one. Okay, possible alternatives for library telescopes. Now I was thinking about this when my friend mentioned that he had a choice between a telescope or his grandkids, so I was looking at size, okay, so. But even these are some of the things that New Hampshire looked at: portability, ease of setup and use, stability, cost considerations. And they had a big issue that they really, I guess this was something they were worried about, was this aperture creep. And that means getting it too big of a telescope. The biggest I could see would be a Starblast 6, a 6-inch f5, okay? But that's 23 pounds. As soon as you get a bigger telescope, the weight goes up, and it could be a difficulty for some people. Maybe a strapping young 30, 40-year-old, but sometimes we have some people, up in their years, and
Hey, I resemble that remark.
Careful.
right there, man.
Careful with
Right.
Because it isn't,
Pardon?
because it isn't a giant telescope, what's the range?
The range.
The range, when you're looking up?
Well, you can see, the size of the telescope doesn't really determine how far you can see.
No.
The brightness of the object is what determines whether you can see it. The Andromeda Galaxy is 2.5 million light years away, and, it's really,
That's a common
you can
question.
see it naked eye,
That
Yeah.
we get.
but,
Oh, yeah.
but
Get
that said,
question.
More about resolution than anything.
Yeah.
yeah, the bigger the telescope, the bigger the aperture, the better you see things. But 4.5 inches is still a pretty good size.
Yeah.
You can see the rings of Saturn, you can see Jupiter, you can see the moon, you can see
Many
Andromeda Galaxy, the
star
Orion
clusters look
Nebula.
great.
Right, you can see some more stuff.
Yeah.
It's a great starter telescope. I have one of those on a tripod, and actually what I do is take it out of the tripod and I just, sit in the lawn chair up north where it's dark skies and look over my shoulder. And, it's not serious observing, but it's just relaxing. So.
Yeah, the Starblast is actually a really good beginner scope.
One alternative to that is to go down a step, is they make a 4-inch AstraScan, which is identical to that. We have one in our club, and my son has one. And it's got the same red dot finder, 4-inch, but the advantage of that, it doesn't have collimation screws on the back,
Okay.
so you don't have to deal with that.
Okay.
So
That's a
that's-
new one that came out, the new one to replace the ball one.
No,
Oh,
this
yeah,
is,
the
looks
regular-
Not
just like
AstraScan.
Yeah, it looks just like the
Star
4-inch.
Scanner.
Yes,
Yeah.
Sky
Star
Scanner.
Scanner, okay.
Yeah.
Sky Scanner?
Yeah, we have one at the club at our.
Is that the Orion?
Yeah, Orion.
Okay, that's
That's 100
the
millimeter.
100
Yeah,
millimeter,
100
a little bit
millimeters,
smaller right
4-inch.
there. Okay, yeah, that's it. So anyway, we'll get on moving right here. Actually talking about, like comparisons. One time at Stargate, we had like one of our observing nights. I had a 6-inch refractor, a 6-inch reflector
Yeah.
and an 8-inch reflector. I fixed it up where the magnification was the same on both of them, and I had different people look, tell me what the difference that you saw. So they told me what they were seeing different. The 8-inch showed, because it gathers more light, they were seeing more detail, you know, the image resolution and everything. So that's the whole thing with, if you have like a 60 millimeter like refractor, and we're looking at a 4.5-inch mirror, you're gathering more light to give you, you know, resolution, so you can see some of those details and everything, okay? I do comparisons between my 8-inch reflector and my 13-inch reflector. There's a world of difference right there. And I don't really have to really boost up any magnification on it. It's just, it's gathering so much light, and I'm seeing all those little faint things I can't see in my 8-inch, but I definitely can see them in the 13-inch. So, but that was a nice thing to do in here, and other people tell me what they're seeing, okay? Okay, here we go. This is just some of the stuff that I was looking at. One of the libraries, I just happened to was doing a Google search, somebody actually does the Star Max 90. Now we have, like I'm saying, some of the average people, 30 to 40 years old. This one right here actually will give you a little more. This would be good for like lunar planetary stuff if they got interested in that. And it's a little smaller than this, so it's in a compact package. That could be a possible alternative for a library to carry one. Evidently this one does it. And they have all their special labels, like, you know, do not do this, do not do that, do not touch the glass, okay? You can see that right there. So that's definitely a library telescope, and they put all these warning signs on it. I don't know what it says on the other side.
Clean the glass.
Okay. But it's a small enough telescope where it could be used as a library telescope.
Did you say the cost?
It's like the next step. Pardon?
Did you say what cost, how much?
The cost, right now, Orion sells these for $199. This is $209. The only difference between these two is that this Orion has this rotating cradle for the optical tube. That is a fixed angle because it has that dovetail. It has that dovetail right there, okay? You could use that dovetail and you can mount it on like a photo tripod with a dovetail fitting. But what it does, it changes the red dot finder, everything rotates and the focuser's down here, okay? So, but it's basically the same system. You would probably have to replace the pads in there because I'm sure they got those little flat things with the staple sticking out of it, okay? But that's a possibility, and I'm looking at, for the cost, the same amount of money to, you know, do the modification or, you know, what have you, okay? And here's a kid, just give you an idea, you know, it's that could be put on a table also, or a tripod. They actually sell this with a tripod system on it, but the quality of it is, I probably have to check that out. Another one that's come out, hasn't come out yet, but this is $149. This is with a tripod though, but this is Explorer Scientific. And it has all the features, but it has an Altaz mount. It doesn't have slow motion cables. I'd love to have slow motion cables on a mount, but some of those can go from, a Celestron runs about $90, and the Vixens have the ones for about $200. So we're looking at a price creep going up and everything right there. So, but anyway, that's a nice little compact scope that could be, okay, so that's not on the market yet. You got to pre-order that for, it's $149, okay. Another one, this is the same Astrodazzle. That's cool, okay. Same thing as this. Everything's the same except it doesn't have the rotating cradle. It's fixed. I bought a couple of these. I donated one to my son-in-law, who is on the honor guard for the Macomb County Sheriffs, and they had a big raffle on it. So, and that bowl was filled with tickets. They had little fish bowls on there, and a family with 4 kids won it, and they were thrilled. And they had it out of the box before it left the building. Okay, so, but anyway, this is the same thing too. I got 2 of these telescopes, $99 each. And the only difference on it is because of that cradle, and it doesn't have an eyepiece rack, but everything else is the same on it. Red dot finder, eyepieces, okay?
Does it have collimation screws in the back?
Yep. Same thing. That's the only difference, and then it's white. All right? So anyway, those are some options that, you know, could be other alternatives, you know, for a library telescope program. But so far, this the Astroblast has really been doing a good job across the country and everything. St. Louis, these rascals, like I said, they delayed our launch of our program. Here's one of their modification parties, okay? They had like 50 of them lined up, okay? And pretty big astronomy club right there. And this went to numerous libraries in the St. Louis area. You see all these stations that they have right there, and you notice there's 4 or 5 people. One's actually doing the work, the other 3 are foremen, or you know, do that. And you know, like I said, astronomers like us, you know, we amateurs, we have all different careers. John, you're a dermatologist, right, and everything. I think this guy right here is some type of a physician. He has a special light that he's looking down in there, so he's doing some real fine medical work on these telescopes right there. But this is their modification party that they do in St. Louis. They just get everybody involved, okay?
How do you use the regular, like our laser collimator? Or how
What's that for?
How are you collimating them?
I use,
Laser collimator?
I don't use it, I just use the pinhole thing right there. It works fine with that, you know, so. This is their secretary of the club that actually orders the telescopes. This is one of the first big ones they did. That's 27. So they did a photo op right here with them all stacked up, okay? And then this is where she delayed us with 50, okay? So that was just a big shipment. They came on in, and I had to wait for the next batch to come in for Grosse. But they actually come in pretty quick. It's a pretty hot item and everything, okay? Okay, Ann Arbor District Library. Let me go over this briefly. Since 2012, when they started their program, they have over 30 telescopes in circulation. 7 of them were donated by the University Lowbrows. And Clay Kessler headed all the modifications on those. And I was actually able to talk to him over the phone and actually in person. And he really told me a lot of the helpful stuff to really keep an eye on. And Amy Cantu and Jody Harnish, they actually work in the library. Jody is in charge of all the telescopes. When they return, they're brought to a central location to be looked at to make sure they're ready to go out to another library. So they just don't have the 5 or 6 branches they have fix the telescopes. They bring them to one area and they have their little crew that actually works on the telescopes. Clay will go like once or twice a year just to do a quick check on anything to see if there's any problems. And Pat McClary from Grosse Pointe actually called them, and she got some insight on the circulation of the telescopes, there any issues that they had and everything. But evidently they got a real good report, and then she went to the Grosse Pointe Library, okay? And then this is how the timeline went when we got the Grosse Pointe program started. I met with Pat and gave her all the particulars of the program. Then she met with the Library Commission to present the proposal, and a lot of the proposal I had to do some phone calling to the board and see if we would be pretty keen on this idea if we were to start this, to partner with Grosse Pointe on this. And then the commission approved the purchase of 7 Starburst telescopes in March. We had to wait a month for them to come in from China, and the WASP board approved it to be a partner with them, and they arrived in May 2015. We had all the parts waiting. We were just waiting for the scopes. Okay, so that went pretty good. And then we started in June 2015, and that's everybody that did that. We launched the program June 26th, and Diane was there, and we actually we had a raffle of what it was for the first 7 people to actually check out the telescope. Okay, and I provide a monthly training telescope class to talk how to use the Starburst telescope, and it does really help with that. And there's been a few times that I've been actually able to take the telescope outdoors and show them how to do it. It makes it even better than looking at that stoplight. Okay, so but it's a nice stoplight. Right? Okay. And then I have scheduled some sidewalk astronomy nights closest to the first quarter moon at both the Woods branch and the Central branch, because the moon always impresses you, you know, especially when you get that first quarter, see a lot of things. The last one I did, International Moon Night that we had, it was on, I did the Thursday, clear night, that circular drive right there. Mm-hmm. I pulled my car up and I set up my big 13-inch dial. I had it up in a matter of minutes. Some lady come out, she says, where did that come from? She thought it just rose out of the ground, right? Like there was like a button I pushed. She says, it wasn't there when I came here, you know? So I says, yeah, we just got a little button. Just go up to the circulation desk and you just keep this right here and everything. But I had over 30 people in just an hour just stop and, you know, spend some time at the telescope. So just by being out there, and then I had flyers, and again, do you know about our library telescope program? No, do you now? Okay, so that's how that worked. This year has been a pretty good year. Really, circulation has increased in there because of a few events that we did with in Grosse Pointe. We had a science family night at Mira Elementary School with Nick DeKreski from the Metro Parks, and we also made 4 telescopes available for to take home that night at the school, and we had over 150 people in attendance, and we skies were getting a little cloudy, so we enjoyed the views of the vapor parking lights over at the Kroger, and so just so they can see upside down lights and everything. I'm pretty good with these lights, okay. At the Grosse Pointe Radio Astronomy Team Science Night, they had the rats. That was the last actually event that they had. I was invited to, they set me up a table with, they had a big poster, library telescope program, and actually was a checkout station where they had to visit and take a look through the telescope, and they got to get all their checks on it. They had a drawing for a telescope at the end of the night. I did a lot more training classes during the summer, June, July, and August, to promote the great partial solar eclipse we had here over Grosse Pointe. Some of you were able to see the great American total eclipse elsewhere, but we had over 450 people at Woods Branch and 275 at Ewald. And we were actually looking through the library telescopes I fitted up with the Botto Astro solar filters. And there's a real nice sunspot complex on the sun, that little string of them. And it was cool watching that eclipse, you know, move across them, and then all of a sudden they appeared on the other side, okay? And just with these activities right there, the circulation of the telescopes, they're checking out quite regularly and everything. And I'm going to be getting some Sidewalk Astronomy at the Central Branch in January. There's a real nice dark site there for me to, and I post the dates, and they have email notifications. So that's what I'm finding out these people are doing. The library sends out emails saying, telescope class tonight with Mr. Mark, and then the people start coming. So I've been averaging about 10 to 15 people for my Wednesday classes, okay? Thank you for your attendance. I hope, you know, this was educational, but I'm enjoying to do this. And if anybody has any contacts or some libraries, maybe in your hometown or anything, let me know. I have a telescope ready for you to use, all set up and modified, so you can actually do your sales pitch, just like the Fuller brush man. You know what I mean? Just pull out your bag of goods. You got a telescope to use. All right. Any questions, Bob?
It'd be useful to have, if you go to these branches, to have say, okay, this branch in Grosse Pointe, we have this many actual checkouts. I mean, if you check out a book, they sign it out. So can they provide to you a list of actually how many times these telescopes have been checked?
Pat wasn't able to get me the number of amounts, but in the numbers I got from Ann Arbor, out of the 30 scopes, and from 2012 to 2015, they went out an average of 56 times each telescope. So that's a lot of, none of them come back with damage. So that was very impressive right there, you know. So, and they do have one damaged telescope. They said that they don't know how it happened or anything, but they use that for spare parts just in case there is, God forbid, an accident or anything. Okay,
so of course when you go, I'm assuming did the library come to you, or did you go to the library proposing?
It's what happened. I think Diane can attest to this. I brought this idea up to Nick DeKreski, and he says, I'm going to bring it up to Pat. Then Nick easily says, Pat wants to talk to you. So then I pretty much had literature for her and everything through the program, and then she says, let me talk to the commission. They wanted a little bit more information, and by that time, I went and bought one myself and did the modifications to see what I was getting myself into. Okay, and it worked out pretty good. And I brought it again, and it was just like, it was a whole different world. They actually saw the finished product. that was like this, that was a selling point right there, and then it went from there. And also, I think it helped the board also too, when you saw it, when I
Oh.
brought it to the board meeting.
Well, I want to say, you know, as one of the people who approved it and did the setups, as somebody who, as Jonathan can attest, he's the guy who manipulates a telescope because I drop things, I'm clumsy, I get anxiety dealing with parts, something like this is eliminating a barrier to getting people into our hobby. These modifications are absolutely amazing. It was revelatory realizing how we had removed all of these things that personally freaked me out on dealing with a piece of equipment. That's huge. That is something that, whether you're dealing with, say, people who are somewhere on the autism spectrum who tend to have those kind of fine motor issues, or people who have just anxiety, I'm going to break this thing, it's expensive, I'm going to get in trouble. It's great, and it's so simple. And it was so much fun to just get a team of people together, and we put these things together and made them accessible. So I love this program.
Yes, sir.
What if maybe you have a telescope that you're not using that you may want to donate, even if it's not like one of these, even if it's just say like a halfway decent 60mm refractor that's refurbishable or in better shape than that, but it could be made more user-friendly or beefed up a little bit, you know what I mean? Just to make it so that it could fit the program. We'd be interested in any of those.
I'm sure, just like with New Hampshire, you would have to look at, you know, the optical system that you're working with, and how can you make it user-friendly. That's the whole key. Like, you know, I'm sure with the refractor, with a tripod, is it going to give you stable images? These are all the things to look at. Evidently, for some reason, they kept on drifting away from that because they knew that was going to be an ongoing thing.
Sure.
Now we're reflecting telescope. It was just like an optical, you know, like I don't know. I was going to do something on the line of, you know, the amateur telescope market is flooded with 4.5-inch reflectors. You see them everywhere, you know, department stores, this, and that. And a lot of times they come with tripods, go-to mounts, and sometimes you find one somewhere, the computer control's missing, but boy, you can make a nice knob mount for it that can make it portable.
Yeah, it's lightweight, it's portable, it's everything you want and something that you're intending for the broadest audience possible.
And some of those 60mm refractors, or some of those 4.5-inch reflectors, like the basic optics, basic objective is okay, is decent, but it just, the hardware, the tripod, the mount, whatever,
Right.
can tend to be junk.
That's what happens, and that's what kind of like gets people away from that stuff right here. But
So they
people
should
come
open
back
the
and they use
possibility.
this, right? So that's what it is right there. Yes, sir.
Does one of the booklets that you give them with the telescope tell them some information about what they're looking at? Like on Jupiter, there's 4 moons you could see. Sometimes you don't see all 4 of them. This is why. You look at, watch for them coming to different positions. Saturn, you can see the rings at different tilts in different years. You know, some information to tell them what to look for.
The instruction book that New Hampshire provides that you can edit, that has information on what you can see it and everything, especially like with the magnification ring, what you can see. Ann Arbor took it, and they took it another step further, and it's actually more informative, and those are the pages we took out of the Ann Arbor book to make for the Grosse Pointe book. I don't have a copy of it. They didn't give me one. I'm going to ask for it. I'm kind of upset.
Do you have the constellation book in there?
I don't have a constellation book. They bought some extras, but I says, I don't need one. Just make sure that you know, you have them just in case a customer misplaces it and they have to replace it in another telescope. The only thing that I provided differently, New Hampshire, I know we're going to get going right here. New Hampshire bought these red headlights, you know, to do their red night vision and everything. I went to our local economy place, Harbor Freight, and this is a red light that we use right here, okay? $3, can't beat it, you know what I mean? This is for night vision, you keep it, and I explain everything to them, you know? Drop something on the ground, he says, you're not gonna be dropping a lot of stuff around with this stuff, everything's attached. But you got a flashlight just in case you need to, and when you pack up the car and you're leaving Stargate, car don't start, you put on emergency flashers, and then you know AAA will find you, okay? So, but this works great, and then the lens pens, we have like the Celestron lens pens that come with it, okay? So anyway, that's it. One more question, I know we got the time.
Just, has any of the Grosse Pointe telescopes gotten, were you saying Ann Arbor hadn't gotten any, or was it Grosse Pointe that had one that got damaged? Or was
No,
Ann
it was
Arbor?
Ann Arbor, he had one. And
So
it was-
Grosse Pointe hasn't gotten any damage?
No damage whatsoever. No damage whatsoever. And then there was an 8th, they actually have 8 telescopes. There was a gentleman by the name, his last name was Ethel II. He had a foundation that he donates things to Ann Arbor, to Grosse Pointe. He actually bought a Starburst and we did the modifications for him. And when we went through the solar eclipse, he was getting calls from family members. He says, "Are you using those telescopes for the solar eclipse?" And then he said, "Are you using our telescope? Because it looks different than the other ones because they have certain stickers." So I assured Pat that it was going to be there with me at Grosse Pointe Woods with a solar filter on it. And I said, "We are using your telescope here at Grosse Pointe." So we made the family happy. Okay. They just want to see their stuff being used when they're making donations. I'm perfectly fine with that. All right. Is that okay, Miss Diane?
It is. Thank you,
Thank you so much, everyone.